Okay, now we are on another matter. Um, we said at the beginning of the conference that we lost 3 people during the past 2 years. And the last one to go was Dr. Ahmed Abu Tawahina, clinical psychologist, resident of Gaza, and a friend and colleague, and a personal friend of several people here in the room. I met Ahmed only 2 or 3 times, actually, face to face, when he was permitted to cross into Israel. But we spoke a lot over Skype, and during the past 4 years, he became part, and an important part of my life and my emotions. Ahmed's daughter, Amani Abu Tawahina, also resident of Gaza, was invited to this conference to attend this lecture and the entire conference. Unfortunately, she was denied exit by Israeli authorities, things that we are greatly sorry for. We will remember Ahmed through Dr. Michaela Fried's presentation. And this presentation is composed of a short film about Ahmed, and then Michaela will also say a few words. So we will now project the film.
You know, Ahmed and I, for fun, actually considered that he might not get permission to participate in this conference, and that in this case, I would do it here. Thank you. Oh, that's simple? Great. Is this good? Good. That in this case, I will do this here by myself, utterly alone, as I said. Whenever we said our goodbyes, we knew it might be the last time to see each other. But I never thought it would be that soon and that way. So here I am, just back from Gaza, to share our work with you, my dearest audience, the best I can. Haim Omer's concept of the new authority is a parent training model suitable for today's free and pluralistic societies, where all participants share the prescription of violence and wish for an education and a society that are, to the best of human abilities, violence-free. As you all know, the last years in Europe, applications of NVR have been developed for work in different settings, with psychiatric disorders, children with psychiatric disorders, severely traumatized children. It was introduced in trauma-organized systems, promoting a supportive community around the traumatized family system by Peter and others. So far, so good. But could NVR be applied in Gaza, an environment in which violence is practically omnipresent? A society in which during the war, the only question was how to survive. In a society in which even in times of relative calm, there is no bombardment, violence escalations ignite on issues such as unemployment, hunger, and poverty. Gaza is such a society. Over the last years, different health programs were established to provide trauma therapy, strengthen and empower individuals, families, and communities to develop resilience in Gaza. But soon it was recognized that trauma therapy in its many facets was not as helpful as would have been necessary. The facts that symptoms of distress and violence are seen in all families, in all caregivers, in teachers, in medical caregivers, in everyone, makes it so hard, so difficult to deal with the vulnerabilities of young people obscured by aggressive behaviors leading to alienation between them and their parents and teachers. In what follows now, I'd like to describe and attempt to introduce the new authority in Gaza, we chose to rebaptize this approach as the new family authority, as both authority and family have a positive connotation in society. Ahmed and I worked in the context of private schools, which are supported in large by funds and donations from abroad. About 80,000 students attend private schools in Gaza. The parents who have to make considerable financial sacrifices to send their children to those schools often complain that teachers, most of them female, have completely lost their authority. Ostensibly, the parents and teachers in those schools oppose the use of physical punishments. However, declarations of goodwill apart, it is not uncommon for the father of an uncooperative child to come to school with a stick to teach his son a lesson he will never forget. The teacher who remembers this last lesson may choose not ever to report again on the child's problems anymore. And then it's not uncommon, however, for the teachers themselves to beat children in class, even in those private schools. The crisis in authority is also felt in the family. Many parents feel they have lost control over their children. They may vent their frustration through harsh but ineffective power punishments or to sink into outright helplessness. Viewed systemically, we could say school and home seem blocked by symmetric and complementary escalation. What we call NFA today, these few minutes, is New Family Authority. NFA was specially designed to help parents and teachers to counter escalation, develop self-control, become able to resist to the child's difficult behaviors in constructive ways. Parents and teachers feel less vulnerable, less alone, and more capable. Children regain a sense that their caregivers are more present and able to protect them from their inner impulses and destructive surroundings. Mothers and female teachers or principals were particularly open and willing to adopt the concepts and praxis of New Family Authority, which seemed to offer them a way out of the helplessness. In order to present and adapt the concepts of New Family Authority to the special conditions of Gaza, we equipped ourselves with flip charts and colored pens, as you can see here, because we most of the time didn't have electricity. These pillars come actually from Austria. These are the so-called 7 pillars of New Authority. Here you go. And I got them from Hans and Stefan, who from the very first moment were supporting me in this project. Here we are a little bit more, well, you know, then we had power. I don't want to go through all these pillars now because you had them enough and heard enough about that. I just want to tell you that adaptation, oh, no, one pillar I need to, this is the reparation, you know. Acts of reparation constitute a valuable addition to the caretaker's reaction repertoire, especially in a culture in which punishment is usually corporal. So we had to actually to know that we are in Gaza, that this is a different culture, this is a different way to do New Authority. And I need to tell you that I was really not ever in the idea of doing nonviolent resistance or so-called New Authority in Gaza. This was not the idea. I went there being equipped with all my trauma education stuff. And then after a few meetings, I started to talk to Ahmed what I know about New Authority. And then we started to do it. And then Haim and Dan helped us. And this is how it began. 15. September 15 was actually a very, very troubled time since there was the war before, a year before. So people constantly came back to their war experiences that were still very, very fresh. We often had to listen to their stories of terror, of loss, of impotence, before we came to a description of the child's problem. And this was really important as we heard the last days, first to be here and to listen, and not to have an answer. The experience that they were attentively listened, even by someone who comes from outside, kind of caring, listening to the suffering, helped to establish an atmosphere of trust. We constantly tried to pay attention not only to the family's suffering, but also to their resilience and how they had tried to the best of their abilities, to protect their children and themselves. And this stance helped to reduce the parents' shame and embarrassment in telling how helpless they felt and how they sometimes reacted in impulsive or violent ways. I'd like to share two cases, maybe two, we'll see, with you. The first is a 14-year-old girl, Amal. She's a good student. Okay. There was one thing I learned, I better do what Dan tells me to do. So, okay, here you go. Now, can you hear me? No? Yeah. Okay, I think I'm sorry. Go. Amal is a 14-year-old, very good student. All of her teachers, as well as the principal and school psychologist, are female. Her father, the Mukhtar, it's kind of a leader of the community, has two wives. Amal is the daughter of his second wife. As the father is mostly away, the eldest son holds the effective power at home. He determines what's in the fridge, what to eat, who wears the best clothes, has the best toys to play with. And Amal is deeply, deeply afraid of her brother and has almost no contact to her father. Amal's mother reported that Amal is actually afraid of everything. She told that Amal once got angry in the middle of her prayers and then threw the Quran down to the ground. Since then, she became totally haunted by the fear that God would punish her. Amal was afraid that teachers in school may talk to her, that children may ask her things. She was afraid of books, pencils, the rubber, everything. And, people around her started to think she's making up stories about her fears. And then she started to skip school more and more frequently. After a few days at home, she also refused to leave her room, stopped all communication with family members apart from her mother. When they tried to talk her against her will, she would fly into a horrid tantrum that would make them all stop their attempt. The mother, who still had the daughter's confidence, agreed to bring her to school to a special meeting with two specialists on children's fears. After a discussion that involved also the school psychologist, the principal, and Amal's mother and teacher, we decided to start, Amal was here, by giving her some psychoeducation on anxiety in the presence of her mother. This would help us building a network with Amal and her mother, allowing us to develop additional interventions. So we would start, Amal, we know that when you're scared and that you're feared, they can be very, very unpleasant. You have all these bad sensations in your body. Tell us, where in your body do you feel the fear? Amal would start describing her symptoms, first hesitantly, but then becoming more and more open and willing to interact with us. We asked her very detailed questions, showing her that we took her symptoms seriously, an attitude that completely contrasted with what she was having all the time before. And then we said to her, we want to explain to you what your body does, what it does to you when your fear comes. Your body would produce some very small, let's call it fear hormones. You can imagine them like little, like micro popcorns or so, that circulate in your blood system and go to your brain and to your heart and does all these bad things for you. And we sketched it on a curve, showing her the symptoms. And then I said, you know, here, right at the top of the curve, you think you're going to die. But then, you know, this is interesting. The popcorns just pop off, and it becomes better. And she was nodding and nodding. And then I said, now you might ask me, why? Why does my body do that to me? And I will tell you, I said to her, because fear is actually very useful if you're in real danger. And then I would, of course, not come with, you know, blowing up houses and stuff, not to re-traumatize her. So, and since I know they do really not have tigers in Gaza, I said, you know, for instance, if you're faced with a tiger, the hormones will help you because they make you freeze as if you were dead, so you have to cheat the tiger. But most of the times you're not in a tiger danger, right? So if you run away or avoid going to school, the fear keeps coming back. Remember, your problem is a tiger when you blow it up, when you make a balloon out of it. But actually it's a little kitten. And the tiger balloon has to shrink again, and we will help you shrinking this tiger balloon. In the end, you'll be able, right, to go to school, but we will help you. And then we encouraged Amal's mother to support her daughter to cope with the fear, but not overprotecting as she did before, saying, Amal, I'm your mother, and this is just your fear hormones that you are feeling now. But I stand here with you, behind you. I'm not scared of your fear hormones. In a short while, they will go away. We have to stick together until the fear goes down. Running away is no solution. You know, these people in Gaza feel so helpless because they always have the answer for the child's behaving problems. Oh, you know, it's the war, it's the ongoing trauma, it's this and that and that. And all of a sudden, we have a mother here who says, I'm not scared of your fear. I stand behind you. This is resilience for the parents. Now we do something again. This is giving them hope. Yeah, in the next step we wrote, of course, as you know, an announcement, not in the next stop, but in one of the next, which ended up with, you know, we won't give up on you, we'll fight on your side, that you'll go to school again. Then we invited Amal's father to school. We met, actually I never met him, but Ahmed met him 4 times. And the father was coming to school, and Ahmed told him in a very respectful way that we would react from now on if Amal shows inappropriate behaviors. They told him that the teacher and principal were the authority in school, as he is the authority in his community. And they told him that Amal's teacher, principal, school psychologist, and the mother would resist Amal's problematic behaviors. But we would talk to her in a very respectful tone from now on. Then the psychologist met with Amal and developed scripts on how to deal with her fears, a task in which Amal actually showed herself very creative. And in the first follow-up 6 months later, Amal's symptoms had partially decreased. She no longer kept in her room, interacted with peers and cousins. Although she still skipped school most of the time, she would meet her teacher and complete all of her homework. Now we decided to make use of the extended family, namely the aunt of Amal. We coached the mother and the aunt on the principles of new family authority. And the idea of family authority was very well accepted then also by the father. Although he never did actually participate in the meetings at school, he was very well involved in the whole process. He asked what had happened at the meeting, what's going to happen next, met again and again and Skyped with Ahmed, and then he would started to write a very positive message to school. The father's contribution, this message was amazing. He wrote, he felt guilty for having neglected his daughter and her mother, and now decided to set that right. Thereupon, he told his elder son, you know, the half-brother of Amal, who was the actual strong figure in this household, that he also had to learn this new approach of new family authority. Thereupon the son met twice with Ahmed, together with Amal's mother. In one of the sessions, Ahmed asked him point blank, "How do you understand that you and your father were having such a difficult impact on Amal and her life, but now all you're taking good care of her and her mother?" And the son, quite surprisingly, answered, "I agree that I and my father gave Amal and her mother a very bad time. I think it's now our duty to repair that. Our duty is now to give them a better time so we can live together as a family." You know, when my father got married with Amal's mother, my mother became extremely jealous and angry, and so we decided to make the life of my father's new family a hell. As my mother was suffering from a chronic disease, my father tried to please her in all possible ways, and the best way to do so was to behave very badly to Amal and her mother. But now new family authority helped us to understand that we are very unjust to Amal and her mother, and that we have to stop this. We are the man in this family, and it's our responsibility to protect the honor of our wives, the honor of our whole family, of the whole clan, because it means to protect our honor. This training gave us a very good opportunity to behave in a different way and to change our attitudes towards Amal and her mother. We could not imagine a better integration of all the new authority here, could we? How much time do we have? Another case? 10 minutes? Oh man. Okay, I had a very nice other case I will not present. I will just go into very short. It was about a boy who was 6 years old and was very aggressive at school. The boy suffered war. He suffered the houses in his neighborhood to explode, and then he started to become very aggressive. His mother went away during a very critical time and came back then and came to our school, even when her husband really forbade her to bring this boy to a child psychiatrist. But she would come, and we would encourage her and would tell her how brave she is to do that. And we started to work with this family. We never could get the psychotic and very traumatized father in, but we could get in the grandfather, we could get in the family again, and we started to do amends. We started to do gestures of reparation with the boy himself, and he started to become very well integrated in school. This would be my second case in more detail. But now, coming to an end of the work we did, concluding, I would like to say that we did not have a plan to do NVR in Gaza at the beginning, as I said. But we felt encouraged to give this concept a try, since teachers, principals, psychologists, social workers, and mothers really were open to this. We want to emphasize that we are modest reformers, not missionaries down there, and definitely not revolutionaries. Changing the society may be our goal, but actually it is not. Our goal is to bring hope, to change something in the microsystem, and actually our idea was to feel responsible if people ask us to help. And this is why we had to start. Now, there are 10 schools involved in this project. Each school is presented by either 2 teachers or 1 teacher and his counselor. We had actually 20 people that we would call a group. Now we don't have them anymore. 2 teachers died last Friday. Others died in between. Now I'm here with a pretty new group. But this group has to grow. We need your help. But what we could see, and this is why we need to go on, is these positive signs, staff, family members, all of them started to tell me that now we dare to speak about stories of sexual abuse, of violence, that we never would have talked before because it would have been a no-go. Although the use of new family authority in Gaza is still young, it shows promising signs, appearing to help reduce violence in schools, families, improve the ability to teach and learn, and reduce parent-child, teacher-child, and parent-teacher conflicts. Last week, there was one teacher of one of our new schools. He said to me, or actually he said to his teachers, because they were, in doubt, well, would this help? And we're so frustrated because of hunger and da-da-da. And he said, so far, no child starved. But how many children in Gaza died because of violence? I will give this concept a new try. We are hopeful the new family authority will gain the trust of more and more parents and teachers, helping them and the children to find a safe island within a region where safety does not exist. I'd like to say at least a few words about my friend and colleague Ahmed. My friend and colleague Ahmed died in February 2018. Torn from the middle of his life, out of the middle of his family in Gaza. Ahmed was, unlike many refugees, they are born in Gaza. His father owned and farmed land. Ahmed would enthuse about the olives and the oranges his father grew, and about his very deep love for his parents and his siblings. Ahmed studied in Cairo and then worked in Europe, the United States, and with colleagues in Israel. Before Gaza turned into a prison, he had the opportunity to establish himself in Europe, but his roots brought him back again to his homeland. I visited him there for the first time in 2015, 1 year after the last war, Operation Protected Edge. In Ahmed's house, I had the opportunity to share in his family's life, along with all aspects of living in Gaza. The trembling of the walls when 20 kilometers away in the south of Gaza was under fire, water shortages, showering or reading by the light of the torch, but also the unbelievable hospitality, warmth, and love his family showed to me. Confronted with the fate of our young clients and their families were enduring, I soon recognized that even belonging to the educated middle class, Ahmed's family lived like any other family in Gaza, trying to survive. I never heard Ahmed complain or require anything for himself. When I would see Ahmed sitting in his living room, wearing a hood and coat, freezing, when we were speaking to each other on Skype in winter, and I asked him how he was, Ahmed would just, in a very quiet, short way, say, we are used to live in deprived circumstances, and then quickly change the subject to distress of his clients. Ahmed understood his impact. He was known in Gaza, a person who was listened to, who was respected, not only at home. He himself had nothing to lose. That's why he could forego violence and embody an attitude of nonviolence in the way he lived. He did not shy away from naming violence and humiliation, whether instigated by the State of Israel or the Hamas regime. At the same time, he sought to unearth the often buried longing for peace and desire for dignity in each person, in the same way that one would seek to find life under rubber after an operation. Ahmed believed in reconciliation, yet he felt the dialogue was a prerequisite for reconciliation. He believed that listening to one another, witnessing and acknowledging the suffering to each, had caused the other a necessity. The obligation he felt to pursue reconciliation grew actually from his very deep faith. The obligation manifested itself in his prolific research activity, his engagement with and activism for numerous NGOs, but it also showed itself on a smaller scale in the many, many consultations he gave to people who sought his help and advice. Ahmed saw not only the spread of blindness in the wake of retaliation, the law, an eye for an eye, but was also actually aware of the paralysis that trauma caused. At the same time, he felt that ongoing traumatizations of the Gazans renders traditional psychological treatment for trauma ineffective. And this is why he liked this NVR approach so much. The increasingly diminished aid, power, and lack of employment in his homeland made him feel helpless, as did the European looking away, and the American, of course. Tell people about our lives. Tell people about our death, Michaela, that we would have a meaning. Ahmed and many of his compatriots said emphatically, the existential economic disaster that renders life near impossible, the poor nutrition, and the lack of medical care, and the death of so many tired Ahmed out and finally broke his heart. He was laid to rest in his homeland, but we will follow his example and carry on. We need every bit of support we can get more than ever. For me, Ahmed is the Ghani of Gaza. My friend, Rega.